Each and every week, we try to give you the opportunity to stay in touch with your communities, and we do it through the conduit of the radio show known as Our Town. It begins right now on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swenson, and the show is brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. A little later on in the program, school is starting this week, maybe early next week for a few school districts, but it's a collective job of all of us to keep our precious cargo as safe as possible. We'll talk back to school tips with Tricia Thein for the Decorah Police Chief and Dan Marx, the Winneshiek County Sheriff. Some big housing development news in the city of Waukon this week. We'll talk about that with Gary Boden, the city manager of Waukon. Big weekend coming up in Cresco. It's the Norman Bourlaug Harvest Festival. We'll preview that with Jason Passmore from the Cresco Chamber of Commerce and Howard County Economic Development. But first things first, we have a party that we're throwing tonight. Yes, us at LA Communications. It is the 30th anniversary of KVIK Radio, and we'll talk about the radio business, how KVIK got its start, and many other things with our boss, our owner, Les Askelson. And when the boss is on the show, he gets to go first. Our interview with Les is coming up now. This is Our Town. It's brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust, and you're listening to 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Well, I got an interesting guest on Our Town this morning. It's my boss. Hopefully this isn't for disciplinary reasons, Les. It's not, right?
Well, it's Radio Day here on Tuesday, so maybe that's why we're celebrating. I didn't give anybody the day off. Everybody's working every day, but hey, it's great to join you here on a Thursday morning. And last few days here before football season for you, especially here, huh? In school.
Exactly. School starts Friday. We will talk to Dan Marx and Tricia Thein later on in the program to talk about safety on that end of things. But we're going to talk about us because we're having a party tonight, Les, from what I understand.
You bet. We have an open house. KVIK is celebrating 30 years, almost to the date. And we're going to celebrate here, of course, at 501 West Water Street, downtown Decorah. 3 until 6 o'clock. We have a ribbon cutting at 3 with the Chamer, which is our neighbors right next door. And we've got the Winneshiek County Cattlemen coming down here to cook some ribeye sandwiches. Darren, I'll buy, okay?
All right.
Staff. Oh, I'll buy for everybody as long as they put some money in the bucket because it's a free will donation. Burgers and ribeyes there, and also the Movable dairy people will be on hand here too with some shakes. And it's a free will donation for all the food, and all the money will be given to the Decorah Elks Children's Foundation. So a little fundraiser for them there too for our birthday party. There'll be some cake and some things that people can have a chance to register for, and we're going to have a great giveaway registration qualification here too. So it's going to be a party in this corner.
And I think we look pretty good for 38, if I do say so myself.
Yep. It goes by fast, Darren, but you know why it goes by so fast? Because we have fun in this business. There's no question about that. And that's why you're in it. That's why I'm still in it as still a young guy.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's go over a little bit of the history of how KVIK came to be, because first things first, and I had this perception before I wasn't in this business, and many people in the public probably don't know because they wouldn't have any reason to know. It's not like if you want to start a radio station, you can just do that out of thin air. A frequency has to become available, and then that frequency goes out for bid. How did the 104.7 frequency become available in Decorah?
Well, it was sitting there. There was another party that was looking at, and they actually had the frequency, and then they actually gave it up. And that's when I had talked to Greg in May, spring of 1994. I ran into Greg Wennis, who then, of course, operated KQIB. And I told Greg we're actually having lunch at Ozzie Quandall's at the Food Ranch back then. And I said, hey, Greg, there's a frequency open in Decorah, 104.7. I think there's room for another radio station in this market. What do you think? He sort of shook his head and so on and so forth. Well, lo and behold, Next thing you know, Greg applies for the application, and he had the resources with KQIB and the staff there that could make it all work with a minimal staff to start another radio station in Decorah because we didn't know how it all work out. So we were awarded that there in July, and then August, I think it was about the 17th of August in 1994, we went on the air for the very first time. And I remember walking through the parking lot with Greg, and we had the keys. We were then, of course, in the Viking One Stop, which is now Don Jose's Mexican restaurant. We're in the back side. That's where our studios were at. But Greg handed me the key to the station. It says, "Les, make it work." And with all the great staff and people that we've had over the years, we did make it work. But yeah, we were located in the back side there at Don Jose's, or what was then the Viking One Stop. Pretty minimal studio. All we had was basically a computer, a radio to monitor, and we actually sent the frequency up to KQIB there in Spring Grove, and basically just did some drop-ins. And then we grew. After a couple of years, I told Greg, I says, if we want the station to grow into this market, we need a full studio. I mean, we need the CDs. We need some staff, more staff, and we need to increase the sales because we first started out with myself, Arlene Salto, and Patty Hawk. We're the only 3 employees when KVIK first went on the air. And Patty was sort of multitasking off myself. She was doing the news. But anyway, we grew. In 2000. We moved down to which is now known as the Cozy Pie Shop. And that was at 213 West Water Street, right next to Two Piece there, apparel shop. And that's when Janelle and Casey came on board in 2000, and we built a full studio there, and worked out very, very well. And then as I felt we were continuing to grow and wanted to be standing on our own 2 feet, we thought that maybe we should look at purchasing a building. And I knew the Carries very well, the family, Lyle Carey and Lyle Jr. and the family. And they, of course, were the owners at that time of the former Kentucky Fried Chicken building, where we're currently at, and 501 West Water Street. And we purchased the building from the Carey family and grew it into actually multi-studios as it grew over the years, and had our sales staff. And we did not really have to provide office space for them because most of them work out of their home and through the internet anymore. So that was in 2006 when we made the big move here to the corner. I was a little reluctant because I thought, being the center where we were there at the Cozy Pie Shop at 213 West Water Street, that was the place to be. But I've learned now over the years, let me tell you, folks, if you have a business, you want a corner lot, because I'll tell you what, the visibility is actually tremendous. And we built some nice studios thanks to Dave Socrates and Decorah Mobile Glass. Developed some beautiful studios with a lot of glass in it. I mean, there's a lot of waving that goes on every morning here and throughout the afternoons because of the way the studios are built. And then in 2019, we grew as the Holtons. Bob and his crew decided that they were interested in selling KDEC, and we put together a offer, and then purchased a KDEC, which was on top of the hill just outside of Decorah, Island Drive, I believe it was. And then we decided to sell that property and move, of course, KDC or KDHK now known, of course, also here to the studios here at downtown Decorah. So we actually have 5 radio stations with KNEI, of course, in Waukon, and it works well. We have 9 now full-time employees. They are all tremendous folks. To have a successful business, you have to have great employees. And I'm not going to leave out our sportscaster, Darren here, and Randy Everson. 2 are key players among 8 or 9 part-time sports announcers. And Darren, you've taken us to another level thanks to your expertise in sports and the connections that you have. I mean, there's times in the fall, I think last year we had 4 or 5 games on in one Friday night, and you will not believe the comments I hear from the towns that we cover. It's not just Decorah anymore. We're basically a Northeast Iowa, Southern Minnesota regional station that does a lot of ball games. We got the people. We got the good people. And it's been a very, very successful, great home here in Decorah and Northeast Iowa. I can't thank enough to all of our great listeners. They're tremendous. Phones ring off the wall. They participate and have fun and get to win a lot of prizes. But also our outstanding sponsors. They're the ones that make it work. They're the ones that I get to pay Darren, of course, a salary to do his work that he does for us. But, you know, they won't. We're a commercial radio station. We cannot function without the support from those sponsors, and they get results. It's been a great station here in Northeast Iowa, Southern Minnesota, and Western Wisconsin. They even listen over in DeSoto too when I get over there once in a while.
And going back to 1994, Decorah is a town of 8,000 people. It had a AM station and an FM station already. Adding a third station in a town this size in an area that's not a great population area, but I mean, we love everybody in this area, but compared to a lot of people, it's really, many people would say it's not a three-station radio market. What made you think it would work? What gave you and Greg the confidence that it was going to work?
Yeah, well, there were some headlines, and I could pull one off here. I think I have it on my desk somewhere where they were questioning that. 3 radio stations in Decorah. Is it needed? Will it work? Well, I was bound and determined myself to make it work. I was on air, of course, with KDC at the time. And I would be able to listen to the market, listen to the listeners, listening to what we were doing there, that I knew that I could bring something new to KVIK. And we started off, as I knew in the morning, people wanted to hear oldies. And that's the market that we first came out with. Basically, we played a lot of 50s, 60s, and 70s oldies music, and no classic hits. It was all oldies. And at the time, you know, you go back 30 years, that was very, very, very popular. It still is today. But then as we saw the market change and advertisers saying we need a little older demographics, and that's when we decided to go to the classic hit station and, you know, listening to the people, listening to your advertisers and what their market needs are at and what the market is calling for. Basically, the industry drove us to what we are today. And that's why it's been successful. We tried some things and listened and made it work.
And I think you bring on the great point of how radio can still work in today's market, because so often your owners aren't living in the communities that they're supposed to serve by their FCC license, being the fact that you and Greg and everybody else are all located here locally and get to talk to the people that are your listeners. How important is that in keeping this industry successful?
Yeah, good point, Darren. You're right. I did go through there a little segment in my radio career when Greg had sold out to Marathon Media, a company that was stationed out of Chicago. And I'm going to tell you, there was reluctancy on some of the advertisers wanting to write that check for advertising because they knew the money probably wasn't staying as local as they would like to see it. And you're right. I think that is another key factor as to why we're so successful, is that we are members of the community. I was born and raised here, just like yourself. We're involved in the community. I've been involved with a lot of nonprofit organizations, county supervisor at 20 years. You know, we're involved with the community. And you are too, Darren, with all of your, of course, aspirations there with sports. And that's what's made us work. People like local. And you know, and that's one thing about it too. There was a segment in the radio industry to where it was sort of leaning towards automation. You know, get rid of that live announcer. We can automate and stuff. And we're live from 6A to 6P. And that's a key factor because we could talk about that person driving by. We could talk about look outside as what, of course, the weather is like, and also talk about community events. That's, you know, we just got wrapped up with check days. You will not believe how many people made a comment. Thank you for supporting our community. Small community, strong community. and they need just as much support as the big community. So being a community person, local person, definitely has made it help us be successful.
As you look at where this industry is right now, what's going to keep it going? What's going to keep it relevant, and what's going to keep LA Communications relevant as we go into the future?
Well, probably still going back to what you're saying, there is still being local. I think being involved with the community. A lot of our, of course, announcers here are also involved with different organizations, and we learn that way as to what that organization does. And we can, of course, expand on that or invite them on the radio. I mean, we do a lot of different interviews here and there with individuals or events or businesses. We do a flashback Friday. It was just, we sort of just kicked it around. I was a little bit, and lo and behold, it has gotten to be a segment on Friday morning that I had actually, the Glenwood Lutefisk committee came in here this morning and said, hey, we need some of that time on the flashback Friday to let them know how the Glenwood Lutefisk dinner first got started. But being involved like that and stuff, Darren, is what's going to keep staying local and keeping, of course, local sports too. You will not believe how many people I hear from Elliot out there at Wellington Place. Great guy, former sports guy and announcer, of course, down at the Decorah High School football field for years. But there's a guy that tells me he's at that radio on Friday nights, switching channels from our stations here that we cover, football and basketball. And it's great entertainment for the people that are in homes or cannot get to the games. And that's gotten a little restrictive too, with all the different things to get into a game. Convenience, we're here giving the people as to what their appetite is for. They want local radio, and they want local sports, local events, local community support too. And that's what we're going to just keep on doing, because that makes it work.
And what keeps you young? What keeps you energetic? You're a KG radio veteran at this point. What keeps you going?
It's the people. There was a time here a couple of years ago I was trying to phase out of track announcing, and
how'd that work for you, by the way?
It lasted maybe 1 year. I think I subbed in 3 times for the full-time announcer. But I love the sport. And the biggest thing when I got away from it there is I missed the people. That was probably the biggest thing, the people down in the pit area and talking about them, and of course, the relationships that I developed, not only with the people, but sponsors, that which has also helped out radio. I was very fortunate. I had a goal, Darren. I wanted to be on TV someday. And I finally accomplished that, just like owning a radio station someday. I got to, when I announced at the Iowa Speedway, I got to be live on TV when we did a NASCAR Busch race at the time, because for 3 years I announced at the Iowa Speedway. But, Darren, people have asked me, when are you going to retire? I don't know how to. I love what I do. And I've had people that have retired, if you like what you do, keep doing it. And matter of fact, I just had a physical here about 4 weeks ago, and we had the same conversation. And he says, Les, keep doing what you're doing. It's what's going to keep you young and fresh and attuned to what is going on around you. He said, don't change. If you love what you're doing, keep doing it. So Darren, I'm going to keep doing it, I guess. Poor Nell's going to have to put up with me in the mornings and stuff, but she keeps saying, you're not quitting. You're not quitting. But I do take Mondays off during the summertime to enjoy some river time and stuff. But, by noon, I'm already on the phone doing some selling. So I sort of multitask here, not only on air, but also sell and then manage, of course, LA Communications.
Well, and I've told people being in this business, I've never really had a real job, and the few ones I've had, there's a reason I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. There's a point, folks. I got to tell you the story. When we were down at the Cozy Pie Place, I tried to hire Darren way back then, and I just couldn't convince him enough to do it. But I just had it in my mind that eventually, someday, Darren would be working for us. And Darren, I am so glad to have you on board. You've taken us to another level of sports coverage that we could have never ever succeeded. And of course, with the news too that you do, I told you had the contacts. I had to convince Darren to come to work for us a little bit because the technology we have today, you can pretty much do your show, your news from anywhere in the world. If you don't believe me, just look at the networks. I mean, they live in Florida, but are doing a show worldwide, basically based out of New York. I mean, technology is great. It's made it so that you can work where you want to live.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you took my offer and that you're on board with us, Darren.
Well, and it's definitely rejuvenated my career and regained my passion for this business. But let's get back to the point at hand. Let's remind folks of the party going on this afternoon. Less is buying as long as you donate to the Elks Kids Club, right?
Yeah, I don't care what you contribute, but I will buy the steaks and burgers and the shakes, thanks to the cattlemen and the Dairy Association, Winneshiek County Dairy, of course, producers. They'll be here in the parking lot from 3 until 6 o'clock, and it's a free will donation. All the money's raised from the food there will be going to the Decorah Elks Children's Foundation. And like I said, we're going to 30 years, we got to give away 30 prizes. So come in and register. We got a lot of neat stuff that you could have a chance to win. And plus, we will have a great giveaway registration here too. Might be a little birthday cake here too around. So, hey, we encourage everybody to come celebrate with us again today, 3 till 6.
Well, and to the listening audience, we appreciate your loyalty. And it's our goal to keep you coming back. And that's our job on a daily basis. And we'll try to do that to the best of our ability. And I got to say, I mean, one thing that made me comfortable in working for this company was the start of the pandemic in 2020. I know we had a station meeting with you and Greg and everybody like that. And you guys assured us that jobs weren't going to get cut because it was a trying time for a lot of businesses, media especially. And I have many friends in this business that aren't in this business because other people had different philosophies at that time. And that was the I was never really doubting my move, but that was the moment. It's just like I'm working for a darn good company, and I appreciate working for you, Les, and working for Greg in the past, and everyone I get to work with. It's honestly, it's rejuvenated my career. I appreciate you taking some time to talk about the party, and let's have some steak sandwiches. Let's have some cake. Let's have some moomobile this afternoon. It should be a fun time.
Yeah, let's celebrate, folks. Come down and celebrate with us. Thank you, Darren, very much.
Les Askelson, KVIK 30th birthday party, 3 to 6 this afternoon at the KVIK studios downtown Decorah. Hard to believe summer is on its final stretches here, but one of the good parts of the end of summer is the Norman Bourlaug Harvest Festival. It takes place this time of year every year in Cresco, and when there's things going on in Cresco, we talked to Jason Passmore, and Jason, you and I were just talking off air. Summer goes by pretty quickly, but there's always reasons to celebrate, and this weekend is a pretty special reason to celebrate in Cresco.
You bet. It does fly by, I tell you, but we've got one more big weekend. It feels like we've gone weekend to weekend with festivities, but we are ready to celebrate the Norman Bourlaug Harvest Fest here in Cresco. Friday, August 23rd, the 24th on Saturday, and Sunday, the 25th. And we'll give summer one more big blast before the kids get into school and really get going.
And let's just run down the day-by-day events. The fun starts Friday. You mentioned what's going on Friday.
Yeah, Friday, we start with our opening ceremonies, give a little tribute to Dr. Bourlaug in Beetle Park. We will have our big tent and beer garden open at 5 o'clock. Kind of cool and new this year. We are doing a color fun run. So we'll have that starting about 6:30 registration an hour beforehand in Beetle Park. And the color runs are the runs where you get to run and people throw color on your white t-shirt. And so all the proceeds go to the Youth Wrestling Club here. And then in the tent Friday night, we are doing our puzzle contest again with a Bourlaug theme to it. So that'll be cool. Come and try your hand at a 500 piece puzzle. We got prizes for the top teams. And then we also are doing bingo that night in the tent. All of that starts at 6:30.
And before we run down the Friday events, kind of unofficially, the fun gets going on Thursday based on the flyer, correct?
You bet. Thursdays are our farmers market days in Cresco. So we're a little bit different. A lot of farmers markets end up, settling in on that Saturday morning and stuff. But we do Thursdays from 3 to 6 o'clock every day, all the way through October. So Thursday kind of starts us off with a farmers market from 3 to 6 in Beetle Park. And a lot of those guys will actually be back on Saturday downtown at the courthouse when we kind of have our farmers market and also our street market vendors that'll be downtown selling a lot of cool things.
And then the schedule on Saturday, stuff happening from morning, noon to night.
You bet. You bet. We got some really cool things going on. You got a great breakfast in the morning with the veterans. Our cruise to Cresco, our classic car show is continues to grow. Last year we had well over 100 cars. If we get good weather, those guys will come out. They start showing up at 8 o'clock, but by noon, most of the cars are here. That all goes on downtown. This year, again, back by popular demand, is our steak cook-off. We have nearly 25 of the best steak cooks in the nation that will descend upon us here in Cresco. And we'll try to win a bunch of money. But in the process, they give a part of their steak to our veterans. So we have a steak dinner where some lucky individuals that are buying tickets like crazy right now will get a chance to sample a steak dinner from these guys. And it's wonderful steak. I will tell you, if you get a ticket, it'll spoil you for the rest of your life. But we've got that going on. You'll be able to go and walk through Beetle Park and see all those. We've got wonderful pickleball courts that we've just built here in the last couple of years. They're doing a nice open play from like 9 to noon down at our park that's all about 2 blocks south of downtown. And then entertainment-wise, we get kind of started in the tent. We have our Quilts of Valor for our veterans at 9:30, and then our huge quilt auction sponsored by the Hospital Auxiliary starts at 11 o'clock. That's always a huge turnout. Great proceeds for that. That starts at 11. 2 o'clock at the theater, we've got a hilarious performance by the Looney Lutherans. If anyone is intrigued by that title, you need to go. They are just hilarious. And then Saturday night, we are bringing back Mudcat Melby to play in the tent. They opened for Hairball this year at our Howard County Fair, and they were phenomenal. So we asked if they were open. They were open for Harvest Fest, so we've got them coming back. Music will start shortly after our parade. So the parade's at 4:30. Parade will be about an hour, so maybe around 6 or 6:30, we'll get the music live in the Harvest Fest tent, and hear some good tunes at night. And then if you want to stay up real late, we're even doing an outdoor movie at night. So that'll be downtown. Wizard of Oz, I think, is what they're showing.
And if that wasn't enough for you, more fun happening on Sunday.
Well, if you couldn't get a ticket for the steak cook-off on Saturday, you got a chance on Sunday. So a lot of these guys that are coming from, we'll get folks from, 13, 14 different states that'll come here to do this steak cook-off. They'll stay for overnight and they'll cook another competition on Sunday. So we'll do that again on Sunday. The Veteran Steak Dinner will be at 12:30 at VFW Hall. We've actually got bump and run races going on at the fairgrounds at 1 o'clock. That should be fun. If you've never seen bump and run, it's kind of, all things are legal in that one. And then at the theater again, they're doing another free movie, this one inside, not outdoors, but doing a free movie at 2 o'clock. So you bet. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this coming weekend for Harvest Fest, we've got a lot of stuff lined up.
And just looking at the flyer, a lot of community support with many sponsors, probably too many to mention in this situation, but really, how rewarding is it to see all the community businesses and local people get behind this traditional event?
Well, we see that in small town Iowa, and man, we are so appreciative of all of our sponsors that are out here. all the community volunteers that come out for all the different events that we see all over the place. And Cresco is no different. So we surely cannot operate and do these huge events without them.
And of course, we always got to talk about the man that we're honoring. You talk about a guy that made an impact on the world from Howard County beyond, and really you can make the argument for the state of Iowa beyond. There's few people that have made an impact on the world more than Dr. Bourlaug.
Oh, amen to that, Darren. Dr. Bourlaug, we still hold an Inspire Day twice a year to try to teach the youth. It's amazing how many people just don't even know him yet. And we'll talk to people in our office from other countries that just absolutely revere him. And so we want to continue to spread his name and his message and what he did to feed the world, basically. We will be doing tours of the Bourlaug farm on Saturday from like 9:30 to 2. So you can go out to the farm. You can hear that story out there on his farm. They've got some new additions out there. They're going to be doing some dedications. It is absolutely beautiful. It is well maintained. You can walk around. You can see everything. So the foundation, you talk about volunteers that put a lot of effort in. Those guys do a ton of work. But yes, it all is. And this weekend is all about, honoring the man that is got a statue in Statutory Hall representing the state of Iowa in its entirety. So Dr. Bourlaug, Norman Bourlaug Harvest Fest.
Anything else we need to hit on that we haven't done so already?
No, we appreciate you guys spreading the word out there. We invite everybody to come on over, whether that be Friday night or anytime on Saturday or come over on Sunday. Come over, check us out. Should be a fun weekend.
Jason, appreciate the time as always. Always fun talking about the events in the community of Cresco, and best of luck with everything going on this weekend. And here's to a great end to summer.
Thanks, Darren.
Jason Passmore with the Cresco Chamber and Howard County Economic Development. Also, the Norman Bourlaug Harvest Festival this weekend in Cresco. Time now to check in with the city manager of Waukon, Gary Boden. And Gary, as we have this interview pre-recorded on Tuesday, you received some pretty good news from the city perspective earlier today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Dexter Quandall, who we've been working with to do a workforce apartment development complex, received an award. We do not know how much it is yet, and that still puts a little caution into this, but he has received a workforce development grant from the state of Iowa to assist in the development of 36 units in Waukon. This grant will trigger activity for which Dexter will purchase approximately 2.5 acres of 5 acres that we have set aside for apartment complex development, and hopefully to begin his project yet this year. This is a project that we have been working on both with and without Dexter for about 3.5, 4 years. Dexter came onto the scene here last fall, and we've been actually this winter, but we have been working with him to effectuate a development agreement for which he submitted his grant application, and we learned today that it was awarded. Again, we don't know how much yet. There was $20 million of IEDA administrated grant funding that went to small cities in the state of Iowa. And those small cities include places like Muscatine, which is not that small, but it is not in a metropolitan statistical area. So that's why we're lumped in with that. We're hopeful that we could get the maximum amount, Dexter could get the maximum amount of this project, which is $1 million. But as of this time, we do not know how much he's going to get. But it certainly will assist in the development of apartments that we have an agreement with him to do. So we'll soon find out exactly how much he'll get. We're hopeful that the whole amount we think that this project is established that the maximum amount could be obtained through this grant program.
Any reminder, where would this apartment complex be located again?
This will be on the south side of town, on our brand new 8th Avenue Southwest Street that connects with 2nd Street and Rossville Road, Iowa Route 9 and 76. It is where a recently developed Dollar General, Dollar Tree Family Dollar, and Steve Platts's new car dealership which is under construction right now, will be located. It'll be located on the western portion of the subdivision, which is closer to 2nd Street Southwest and 8th Avenue Southwest.
And I know housing availability has been an issue for many small communities in the state of Iowa, Waukon being no exceptions. What other initiatives do you have in the fire right now? Obviously, this was good news that you got this morning, but what other housing initiatives are maybe getting closer to becoming to fruition?
Well, last night at our council meeting, we had extensive discussions about the Tailwinds Ben Garrett duplex project. And in fact, from that meeting, we are going to make some minor adjustments to the development purchase agreement that will come forward on the meeting of September the 3rd. It's on a Tuesday. Normally we're on Monday, but that's a Labor Day. But we fully expect that we'll have Ben Garrett and this duplex project engaged in 2 weeks. That will be a first phase of owner-occupied duplexes, be 4 buildings, 8 units. And then if everything goes well, there is an option to purchase the other half of the ground that's been identified for this project to do another 4 buildings and 8 units. We're pretty excited about that project, and so is the developer, and we feel very confident that we'll have the final approvals of those purchases of ground, approval of the agreement, and all of that occurring on the September the 3rd. So we have 2 major projects that we've been working on literally for 3 to 4 years, actually probably more like 4 to 5 years in some cases, that have just coincidentally come to fruition at the same time.
And where is this project located again?
This is a street that would extend easterly off of 9th Street Northwest. 9th Street Northwest is Iowa Route 76. And it is approximately 2 blocks north of the next intersecting street, which is 3rd Avenue Northwest.
And you bring up all the work that you've put into these 2 things. Is that just a sign that when tackling the issue of housing, it's something that doesn't happen overnight? There's a lot of steps if you're going to do it right.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, the pace of these 2 projects, I think, took a little bit longer than anticipated from the standpoint that we had to deal with COVID, which put a real crimp into the economy and a crimp into housing development. And in fact, we are still, as an economy, as a state, and probably even at a national level, dealing with a lot of housing issues that right now it's very difficult to try and make happen. The city of Waukon has made some significant commitments to try and effectuate housing development, as evidenced by not only the subdivision that we developed partially on ground that we controlled on 8th Avenue Southwest, but also the ground that we owned and own on off of 9th Avenue or 9th Street Northwest. That's been some of the fortunate opportunity that we've had, because we've been able to effectuate a little bit more development incentive and control because this is on properties that we have owned. Without that, it would have been probably more difficult to make these things happen. At the same time, it is established an understanding that Waukon has made some significant investment and significant commitments to effectuate housing development. I would dare say more so than most any other city of our size in the state. Putting together what ultimately could be 72 units of apartment complex development and 16 units of duplex development is a pretty big statement for a city of 3,800.
But if you don't have places for people to live, it's difficult for them to get you to move to move to your community for jobs, right?
Yeah, and understand that we have said all along, this is not about a market for Waukon. This is a market for certainly the very northeastern portion of the state. We expect that there's a 20 or 30 mile radius. I mean, that means going all the way to the west, from not just to Decorah, all the way out to Cresco and down into Clayton County, up into Houston County in Minnesota, and actually across the Mississippi River in the Prairie du Chien area or in the Lansing area. We know that there's a big need. One of the studies that we have engaged with over the past 2 or 3 years to help make the case for these projects is one that showed that for workforce development housing, people who are working in factories, working in hospitals, working as teachers, working as farm laborers, making in the $20 to $25 an hour range, there's no housing for these folks. And one study showed that in Alameda County, we needed 240 such type of rental units. And at full build out, assuming that Dexter Condo is successful for the first 36, the next 36 would potentially come right behind it. We'd only be addressing about a third of that need. And that's just in Alameda County. So we fully expect that there is a market here and that we can't look at it just internal to what's happening in Waukon. We have to look at this on a little bit more regional basis. We have the capability of doing it. Probably most cities in Alameda County don't have quite the leverage or the capability of undertaking projects of this sort. But at the same time, it's a significant commitment that the city has made here to try and address what was a sub-regional issue.
And I know when it comes to development, there's a lot of conversations that have to happen before sometimes matters become public. But do you have any other irons in the fire when it comes to housing development right now?
No, only because if anything else, we've been really focused on trying to land these two.
Okay.
Although there has been discussions about doing some single-family housing development on a very small scale, there is still a significant need to do single-family housing development on a broader scale, and that's again not just Waukon. That's everywhere around, and trying to figure out how to crack that nut from the standpoint of recognizing that there needs to be capitalization and investment from the private sector to make these things happen is a problem. Again, we have to look at developers that are large enough, not only from the capability of building, but large enough from the capability of financing these kinds of projects. In both cases, we have local connection with the two developers that are doing these projects, but at the same time, they're actually representing out of town interests. And I think that, if we can start getting some momentum here, we might attract a little bit more of a more regional investment portfolio as what has happened in this particular case. I think the thing to likewise understand is that doesn't mean that our local builders and developers can't participate, but we recognize that there is a sensitivity on their behalf of trying to figure out how to finance these things. And hopefully, whether it's local or whether it's regional, we can demonstrate the capability of doing these things and that there is a need that is now being recognized by developers to undertake projects of this nature.
But when it comes to housing development, is this a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation? If you get some of these developments going, do you think that can snowball in the right direction, that other people would be interested, knowing the fact that, hey, the city is committed to this, they want to make it right, they want to add to the housing stock, they're making it work, I can make it work too?
I think so. I think also it's a recognition of market too. I mean, with the addition of these types of units going into our local housing market, and again, our local housing market isn't just the city of Waukon. I think there might be some churn here where, you know, we can create some vacancies and create some opportunity to recognize market expansion. I mean, a lot of the stagnation has been due to the fact that you can't get something to go to begin with. I understand your chicken and egg analogy, but the fact is that I think we're the egg right now. We have to get stuff started. And that is what our incentivization has been all about. Now, maybe it'll be easier for people to make personal or local or private investment. Although, to be honest with you, I fully expect that if we are going to talk about single family housing subdivisions, the city is probably going to have to spend some money and make some commitment on an incentivization of doing that kind of housing development. But the broader circumstances is by adding population to our community through these units, we will expect that there will be some churn and some additional incentivization for commercial development. In some markets that will be supportive of what we have going on and maybe some expansion. The subdivision on 8th Avenue Southwest has ground that's available for commercial development as well as apartment development, as well as the commercial development that's occurred. So there might be some more feedback or more of a nature to go ahead and do that kind of development with an expansion of population, and for that matter, a commitment and recognition of the city's commitment to make some of these things happen.
Anything else we haven't touched on related to housing during this conversation?
That's plenty.
Yeah.
That's a lot what we've done. I mean, obviously the work has been going on for a long time, and to be honest with you, it's not just the city doing the work, if you will. Val Renke from Alameda County EDT has been incredibly instrumental in making both of these projects happen, particularly the apartment complex. And for that matter, we've gotten assistance from UERPC, our planning cog that's centered out of Decorah, that's been instrumental in helping us out, as well as organizations like ISU, who's done some study, who work for us that helps create and understand the data for the marketing that we've done. Realistically, this is the starting point for us. And if in fact we think that we have opportunity to do some more expansion, and it bears out within market analysis and people are willing to make that financial commitment, we would hope that we would continue to do this. But this is a change. This is a change for Waukon because for the longest time we kind of sat still, and a lot of it was due to the fact that the only way that people thought that these things could be done is through just private investment at the local level. And what this experience has taught us is that it can't be done that way just based upon local commitment. It takes regional commitment with people who have the wherewithal to make this happen. Again, we hope that this will spur development that even the local developers will see as opportunity and bring more market to them. But we're in an environment now where cities our size have to be an active partner in making these things happen.
Anything else from a non-housing perspective that you want to pass on from the city perspective this morning?
Well, at last night's council meeting, We also talked about capital improvement development. I mean, it's a not just a financing plan, but also a project identification. We took the first step in doing that. We're going to have meetings that are come on in the upcoming month to try and really focus on where we need to make some commitments on street reconstructions, water and sewer, sanitary sewer mains, and then for that matter, even storm sewer projects that will require us to look at not only financing that we can control, but perhaps go into bonding, which will require additional fundings at the local level to make these repairs. Please understand that what we're doing with that kind of work is separate from what we're trying to do with the other kinds of projects that are housing related. Quite frankly, the monies that we would use for the housing projects cannot be used for projects that we're looking to do as far as the reconstructions and redevelopment of existing infrastructure.
All right, Gary, appreciate you taking the time to tell us about a lot of news happening in the city of Waukon this morning. Look forward to our conversation again next month.
All right, very good.
Gary Boden, city manager of Waukon. Well, school is back in session this week, and maybe the kids aren't overly excited about it. Maybe they are in these situations, but collectively as a community, that means we got people to look out for when we're traveling in the mornings and in the afternoons. And here to discuss school safety, Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx and Tricia Thein, the police chief for Decorah. And we'll start with a general obligation for all of us in these situations. We'll start with you, Tricia. How important is it for all of us just to have that extra time, that extra sense, that extra awareness that there's going to be more people on the streets, young drivers driving, etc. at these times of year, to make sure collectively we make things as safe as possible?
I would say it's so important that I would call it a life or death situation, because a lot of data has been collected since 2012 about school safety, pedestrian safety, student safety during the school year. And since data has been collected, we have 206 people that have been killed, pedestrians, to include children, the school-age children, from motor vehicle accidents, from school bus stops, and from just walking to and from school. Going to and from school should not cost you your life. So it is critically important for all drivers on the road to just be present, be aware, don't get distracted, give yourself extra time, and just understand that everybody's a little excited, and that the roadways are just going to be full, that you're just going to have to learn to share the road.
And Dan, how important is it just to be patient? I mean, I'm asking the question as a guy that's probably not patient enough when it comes to getting from point A to point B, but how important is just patience, knowing the fact that if you aren't patient, it can definitely have tragic consequences?
Absolutely, Darren. I think it starts with just having a clear understanding of what the consequences are if you're not patient, and how that can destroy a family, and frankly, how that can destroy you if you are the cause of a child being injured or killed. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around whatever you had to get to was so important that it was worth those kind of consequences. Obviously, it's not. So yes, extending people some grace and courtesy, understanding that we have little kids walking to school that might not cross in the right places, might not look both ways. Obviously, we hope they do. We teach them to, but they're little kids. We as adults have an obligation to look out for them. Furthermore, you have new drivers, a lot of young drivers on the road that this might be the most driving they've done in some time. Maybe they've done some driving over the summer, but a lot of them maybe haven't. Let's extend them a little courtesy as well. And as you said, patience, what you started with, patience, be patient to their situation. They have a lot of stress in their lives too. They're new drivers. They're starting school. It's a fresh year at school. It's a lot of stress. If we all think back being a teenager, it wasn't easy years. It was a lot of fun, good memories, but they're not easy years. And then we go to the school buses. Those drivers are doing the very best they can. They have a lot to keep in mind when they're picking up kids and dropping kids off. They're trying to make sure the children are safe. They're trying to watch for traffic. They're trying to keep order on the school bus. They have a lot on their plate. And I think we all owe it to the school bus drivers and the parents dropping their kids off at these school bus stops and the children at the school bus stops to do our part to make things just a little bit easier for them and ensure that everybody gets where they're going safely.
And Tricia, the joint press release that your department as well as the sheriff's office put out this week regarding it framed it in an interesting way that I never thought of before, but it's regarding the weight of vehicles, the weight of children, and how the impact can have these tragic consequences. Explain for those that might not have seen that press release you put out. Just explain how you framed that, because I thought it was very well done.
Well, quite frankly, when we look at the stats from the 2022 to 2023 school year, there were 27 pedestrian fatalities, and that does not count the other 60 people injured in school-related or bus transportation accidents for our school-aged children. So wanted to start doing some comparatives, and we could throw some math equations in early to get the school year started right. But the average weight of a four-door sedan, 4,400 to 4,600 pounds. The average weight of a full-size pickup truck, 4,000 to 8,000 pounds. The average weight of a school bus, 14,500 pounds when it's not loaded, and up to 36,000 pounds when loaded. And the average weight of an elementary age kid, 77 to 79 pounds. So quite frankly, as we look at the impact comparisons to those, and every mile an hour over a posted speed limit only magnifies your impact force and the trauma and damage that you can do to a child. And getting somewhere early or on time or even a little bit late is not worth the life of a child. So really wanted somebody to consider that. We don't really think about that when we see little people by the tires of a pickup truck, but a fraction of the weight is all that little baby weighs. So people just need to be cognizant of those differences and knowing that slowing down could make the difference. We do not want somebody to learn safety by accident.
And piggybacking on that, Tricia, what are some things that folks should keep in mind, especially when going to crosswalks, dealing with pedestrians, etc. this time of year?
That the pedestrians are always going to have the right of way, that we have to always expect the unexpected on the roadway. And that goes even if we're just looking at vehicles and vehicles. You should always have a safe traveling distance to the vehicle in front of you. You should always be able to ensure that you can stop in an assured clear distance, as Iowa law dictates. When you're talking about people, bumper to bumper, the damage can be minimal. Bumper to a person, the damage is significant. So I would say slow down, slow down, slow down. I can't emphasize that enough. As you're approaching the school zones, the school areas, recognize the drops in speed limits, pay attention to the crosswalks, and understand that children are predictable with the excitement of the first days of school, that they may dart up from behind a bus or from behind a car. And we would really want you to be prepared to react and have your reactionary gap be acceptable to accommodate those surprises.
And Dan, last spring, we talked with you and Tricia about the issue of motorists passing stopped school buses, and you threw out some numbers, but it's one of those situations, if it happens once, it happens way too many times. Give us the punishment for folks that do this really stupid thing. I'm going to call it like it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Iowa several years ago did change their school bus laws, and they put some real teeth in it. And the consequences are severe if you pass a school bus, whether it's an accident or a mistake. As you said, Darren, it's you can't take it back. It only takes once. The idea that, well, when's the last time something's happened, I think is a very ignorant argument. If that's your child that we're rolling the dice with, you probably wouldn't feel that way. So the penalties are severe. For a first offense, passing a school bus unlawfully, will be a fine of anywhere between $250 to $675. So a fairly steep fine by most scales for most of us. And automatic. And here's what gets people. This is the part that we found, and unfortunately, there are quite a few school bus violations every year. I'll just throw that out there. It is something we deal with on a fairly regular basis, unfortunately. But the part of the penalty that really can throw a wrench into people's plans is the license revocation. There is an automatic 30-day license revocation. that accompanies just a first offense for this. So think about getting your kids to and from school, getting to work, getting to daycare, running your errands, all the things that we all deal with in basic life. How different that looks if we don't have a driver's license and we can't get around. So the penalties are severe. They're intended that way. The state of Iowa put those in intentional, that we're serious about school bus safety. And when you see a big yellow school bus, be prepared to stop. A little refresher on some of the school bus laws and how that works. Bottom line, I can make this real easy. If any lights are flashing on a school bus, whether yellow or red, and you're approaching from the rear of the school bus, you have to stop. There's no gray area. You have to stop. Whether the reds and the stop arm are out or not, any flashing lights, you have to stop. And actually, it says that right across the back of the school bus. So if you forget and you're paying attention and you're going slow enough like you should be, you can read about it right on the back of the school bus. Approaching from the front, you must stop, or first of all, start here. You must slow your vehicle to at least 20 miles an hour or less if any flashing lights are on, any ambers are on. Once the red flashing lights and the stop arm comes out, you're once again required to stop your vehicle in front of the bus. That's it. There are a few exceptions. I get some calls once in a while and some clarifications on what about 4-lane roads? There are a few exceptions on 4-lane roads, but to be honest with you, Darren, I'm not going to get into that because I can make this easy again. We don't have any 4-lane roads in the county that this would apply to. So if you live in a bigger area, maybe look into that a little more, but around, because there are some exceptions to having to stop there. But in Winneshiek County, you have to stop. Regardless of which direction you're going, stop for a school bus or it will be a violation.
And regarding picking up people that do this, and this is something I didn't know until we had the conversation last year, pretty much anybody can report somebody doing this, correct?
Absolutely. There's a formal reporting form that generally gets filled out by the school bus drivers. You know, and let's be honest, in today's world, most of our school buses have cameras. And so it's usually on video. It's usually fairly indisputable. Not all the time. There's always nuances to it, but also the public can report it. You're absolutely right. There's school bus forms that the public can report. A school driver can report. Bottom line, the violation is the violation. If the law was broke, it doesn't matter who reported it. That's not going to get someone off the hook. We actually had a problem area last year down in the South Winneshiek district, and one of our deputies was sitting down there monitoring the situation and had a vehicle go blow right past the stopped school bus with the red and stop arm out right in front of him. And he wasn't hiding. We don't use those kind of tactics. He was fully out and visible for everybody to see, not playing games or trying to trick anybody, and went right around the school bus even then. And I think the reality is he didn't see our deputy sitting there, and apparently didn't see the school bus either. And that's a problem. Somebody that's driving down the road at 55, 60 miles an hour and doesn't see a fully marked squad car and a big yellow school bus with flashing lights and a stop arm out is someone I think most of us probably don't want to be on the road by.
Exactly. And Tricia, we always talk about the issue of distracted driving, and that's an issue any time of year and in any situation. But how cognizant do we have to be to avoid those distractions, especially in these situations?
Be 100% present. Seriously, anything that can be a distraction to you, whether it be food, whether it be makeup, whether it be your cell phone, whether it be your radio station, forego those things. Seriously, the time that it takes you to look down at your phone, the time that it takes you to grab a bite of food or grab a drink as you're commuting from one spot to another is enough time for a child to dart out in front of your car. And again, we can't take it back. Once we've gone there, we can't take it back. And so better to just not hit that point. So be present, don't drive distracted, and just slow down. When you are going slower, you have a bigger window for your reaction. And that's key.
And Dan, you mentioned the young drivers that are inexperienced and out on the roadway driving to school. What type of message do you send the young drivers, and what type of things should parents touch on with their young drivers to make sure they're as safe as possible?
Well, again, as earlier in this interview, it's maybe becoming apparent, I like to keep things messaging simple. And my simple message would be slow down. If nothing else occurs other than slow down, well, and I will add a second one to that, to the chief's point. Slow down and pay attention. Don't try to multitask when you're driving a car. That's your job. Slow down and pay attention, and we'd be amazed about the amount of accidents and close calls or tragedies that we can avoid. By going slow, it gives us so much better of a chance for other people to see us and for us to see them and be able to react, even if something beyond our control is happening. Whether we talk about whether we're having to drive defensively for another bad driver, frankly, that we have to take corrective action to keep ourselves safe, whether it's to avoid a child darting out in the road because they saw a friend across the street and didn't think to look both ways, whether it's somebody who suddenly stops in front of us, and list goes on, but we certainly can't get done with this list without talking about weather and road conditions.
Mhm.
We live in Northeast Iowa. You know, I get asked all the time, you know, what do you recommend if you, for safe driving, if the roads aren't good? And the short answer is slow down. Once you end up in a slide, there's very little you can do. The best, I don't care how good of a driver you are, once your vehicle has lost contact with the road, solid contact, and is in a sideways slide or skid or whatever kind of a skid you're in, there's very little you can do. That's the key is don't get into that situation in the first place. And we do that by slowing down. Speed, excessive speed is the #1 cause of accidents in the state of Iowa. And I think I would be making an accurate statement by saying the nation. So tell your kids to slow down, wear their seatbelt, don't drive distracted. If we can focus on those 3 simple things, sure, there's other things that can be done, but if we can just focus on those 3 simple things, you'd be amazed the amount of things we could avoid.
Anything else we need to hit on, Tricia?
Yeah, I wanted to just follow up, finally changing gears a little bit, is just want to remind parents and encourage them to be mindful when posting pictures of your young child online, sharing too much personal information. Obviously, if they're wearing school type uniforms that indicate the school, the building that they attend, how old they are. It doesn't really take long for somebody to come up with some nefarious ideas if they get their hands on that kind of information. So really just be mindful of posting those things. Take the photo, memorialize that day for sure. If you send it in a text message to your mom, you can determine your audience, because online sharing of that information, the message you send is going to definitely exceed your expected audience. And I just want to remind people that safety starts with us, but it ultimately begins with you. If we're all living by that motto, I think we can keep Decorah and Winneshiek County safer as this school year begins.
And Dan, anything else you need to touch on?
Just want to let everybody know we're looking forward to another great school year. We're going to have full patrols out here, especially this first week of school and throughout the school year. You'll be seeing us before and after school, especially in those school zones. So if you need anything, feel free to wave one of us down or just wave at us. We like that too. Don't do it too much. Make sure you're focusing on the road. So, and also we have a school initiative coming up this year that we're going to really try to get into the schools more, just randomly, just during the day, during activities. We might really no set time, but just we're going to be around and kind of as time allows for us, but we want students and families and parents and faculty alike to know we're around if they need us. And it's good in more ways than one to be a little bit unpredictable of when that's going to be.
All right, Tricia and Dan, we appreciate you taking the time to give us these awfully good reminders at this time of year to try to keep our precious cargo as safe as possible and ourselves as safe as possible as well. We thank you for taking the time, and here's to a great start to the school year.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.
Tricia, Thein, and Dan Marx, Decorah Police Chief and Winneshiek County Sheriff, talking school safety. Thank you to our guest on the program this morning, our boss, Les Askelson, KVIK 30th celebration party coming up 3 to 6 this afternoon at the KVIK studios in downtown Decorah. See you there. Jason Passmore, Cresco Chamer, Howard County Economic Development. Jason told us all about The Norman Bourlaug Harvest Festival coming up this weekend. Some big housing news in the city of Waukon this week. News brought to us by Waukon City Manager Gary Boden. And I want to thank Tricia Thein and Dan Marx, Decorah Police Chief and Winneshiek County Sheriff, giving us some always important back-to-school tips to keep everybody, especially our precious cargo and the kiddos of the community, as safe as possible. Don't forget, each and every week, we put these shows on YouTube. We realize you're busy, a lot of things going on, kids going back to school this week, et cetera, et cetera. You can't always be near a smart speaker or a radio at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, so we want to bring you this program on your schedule. Go to 8-22 Our Town program if you're out searching anything interesting on YouTube. Hopefully this fits into that category. Or we always put these on our Facebook pages of all of our LA Communications radio stations. So it's another way we do our best to keep in touch with the community so we can keep in touch with our listeners and we can do our jobs to the best of our ability here at LA Communications. Thank you to our guest. Thank you to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. And most importantly, thank you. That's right, you. For tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. See you this afternoon at the KVIK birthday party.